The rule had always been clear, written in black letters on white paper, framed and signed by people who believed rules could control human feeling. Emma Carter had read it many times, agreed with it, even defended it in conversations. That rule said that certain connections were not allowed, not because they were evil, but because they were considered risky. Society liked safety more than honesty. On that Monday morning in Seattle, Emma felt the rule before she even thought about it. She stood outside the meeting room, holding a thin folder to her chest. The glass wall reflected her face back at her. She looked calm, professional, and steady. Inside, her heart moved faster than her steps. Daniel Brooks was already there. He sat alone at the long table, sleeves rolled up, reading notes with full attention. He was not doing anything special. It was simply being himself, and that was the problem. Emma noticed small details without trying, the way he leaned forward when focused, the tired line near his eyes, the quiet patience in his movements. She told herself this was normal. People noticed coworkers all the time. This meant nothing. She walked in, Daniel looked up and smiled. It was polite, warm, and safe. He always kept it that way. He never touched, never hinted, never crossed lines. That was why it was so hard. If he had been careless, Emma could have dismissed him easily. But he was careful. He respected space, words, and rules. Respect had slowly turned into something heavier. They began the meeting. Numbers were discussed. Plans were reviewed. Voices stayed calm. Everything looked ordinary from the outside. But inside Emma's mind, thoughts moved quickly. She noticed pauses between Daniel's words. She noticed how he waited before disagreeing, how he listened more than he spoke. She felt seen in a way she had not felt in years. Emma had a good life, a stable job, friends, a past that had taught her to be cautious. She believed attraction was loud, obvious, and physical. This was different. This was quiet. It felt like someone slowly opening a window in a closed room. After the meeting ended, others left first. Papers were collected. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. Soon it was just Emma and Daniel again. Like many evenings before, you handled that well, Daniel said as he packed his bag. Emma nodded. You too. Silence filled the room. It was not uncomfortable, but it was heavy. Both of them felt. They stood on opposite sides of the table, not moving closer, not stepping away. The rule lived between them like a third person. Emma spoke without thinking. Do you ever feel like we're all pretending something doesn't exist just because? It's easier. Daniel stopped. He did not answer right away. He zipped his bag slowly, then looked up. Yes, he said. Only one word. Enough to change the air. After that day, things moved faster, even though nothing physical happened. That was the strange part. No touch, no confession. Just awareness. They worked together more closely. Projects overlapped. Emails came more often. Conversations stretched longer. They spoke about work, then about books, then about memories. Daniel talked about growing up in a quiet town, about learning responsibility early. Emma shared pieces of herself she usually kept hidden, like how she feared choosing wrong and living with regret. Each conversation ended carefully. No one said too much. No one admitted anything. But both of them carried the same question home every night. What is the mistake? Society often said the mistake was action. But Emma felt something else. She felt that the mistake might already be happening inside her. She was thinking about someone she should not think about. She was waiting for messages she pretended not to expect. She was measuring her days by moments that belonged to work but felt personal. One evening, the office stayed open late. Rain tapped against the windows. The city outside looked tired and blurred. Emma sat at her desk, finishing a report she had rewritten 3 times without reason. She knew she was waiting. Neil walked by. You're still here. So are you, she replied. He hesitated, then pulled a chair over and sat across from her. They talked about nothing important. The rain, the budget, the long week ahead. But under every word was something unsaid. Emma suddenly felt tired of pretending. "This feels wrong," she said softly. Daniel did not pretend to misunderstand. "I know, but it doesn't feel bad," she added. That was the dangerous truth. They were not doing anything harmful. They were not lying to others. They were not breaking promises. Yet the rules said this connection was prohibited. Society believed that even quiet feelings could cause damage. Daniel leaned back slightly, creating space instead of closing it. "Rules exist for a reason," he said carefully. "They protect people." Emma nodded. "Do they protect us too?" "All right." Questions stayed unanswered. From that moment on, they both became more aware of time. Every shared moment felt borrowed. Every conversation felt like it could be the last. The pace of their days increased, not because things were happening, but because decisions were coming closer. Emma began to notice others noticing. A glance held too long. A smile returned too quickly. Small things that could grow into rumors. Society was not patient with quiet mistakes. It preferred clear stories with clear blame. Daniel saw it too. He knew how things ended when lines blurred. Career suffered. Trust broke. Even innocent connections could be misunderstood. He had worked too hard to risk everything. So had Emma. One afternoon, Daniel asked to talk privately. His tone was calm, but his eyes looked tired. "I've requested a transfer," he said. Emma felt the words before she understood them. "Why?" "Because this isn't fair," he answered. "To you, to the team, to the work, and to us." She asked quietly. Daniel paused. "To us too." The days after that moved quickly. Papers were signed. Goodbyes were spoken with professional smiles. No one asked questions. No one suspected. The truth behind the decision. Society saw a clean ending. On Daniel's last day, Emma found him by the elevator. They stood side by side, not facing each other. "I'm glad we didn't make the mistake," she said, repeating what everyone would say. Daniel looked at the closed elevator doors. "I'm not sure we avoided it," he replied. "I think we just chose a different kind." The elevator arrived. The doors opened. Daniel stepped inside. Emma stayed where she was. As the doors closed, Emma realized something important. The mistake society feared had not happened in action. It had happened in the heart. And once that happened, no rule could erase it. She returned to her desk, surrounded by order, rules, and quiet success. But something inside her had changed. She had learned that some prohibited mistakes are not loud or reckless. They are slow, thoughtful, and full of meaning, and they are always done by someone, usually by people who never planned to break any rule at all. Winter arrived early in Toronto, sharp and quiet, as if the city itself had decided to hold its breath. Daniel Brooks stood near the office window on his first day there, watching people move below in heavy coats, each one heading somewhere important, somewhere necessary. He told himself he had done the right thing. Distance was supposed to make things clear. Distance was supposed to solve problems. It did not. His new office was larger, brighter, and filled with unfamiliar faces. Everyone was polite. Everyone welcomed him. He smiled, nodded, and learned names quickly. On paper, his life was moving forward. In his chest, something stayed behind in Seattle. Emma Carter felt the change immediately after Daniel left. The office felt quieter, even when it was loud. Meetings ended faster. Emails were shorter. She filled her days with work, adding tasks that were not required, staying late for no reason. She told herself she was adjusting. She told herself this was normal. At night, she replayed moments she had never fully lived. Conversations that ended too soon. Words she had held back. Feelings she had treated like a danger instead of a truth. Society praised people like her. Responsible, careful, strong, but strength did not stop the ache. Daniel tried to bury himself in routine. Morning runs in the cold, long hours at work, quiet dinners alone. He avoided thinking about Emma by thinking about everything else. But she appeared in small things. A phrase someone used, a laugh that sounded familiar, a pause that felt unfinished. They did not speak at first. Weeks passed without contact. That silence felt respectful, correct, and painful. Daniel told himself that breaking silence would be selfish. Emma told herself that waiting was mature. Both of them were wrong in quiet ways. One evening, after a long day, Daniel opened his laptop and stared at the screen. He typed a message, erased it, typed again, then erased it once more. Finally, he wrote something simple. "Hope you're doing well. I still think about our conversations." He stared at the words, afraid they were too much, afraid they were not enough. Then he sent it. Emma read the message late at night. The room was dark except for the light of her phone. Her heart moved faster, not with excitement, but with recognition. She had not imagined the connection. It had been real. It still was. She did not reply right away. She walked around her apartment thinking, society had rules for behavior, not for memory. She could not erase what had already shaped her. The reply she sent was careful. "I hope you are too. Some conversations stay with us longer than we expect." They did not message often. When they did, it was slow and thoughtful. No promises, no confessions. Just honesty shaped by restraint. Each message felt like standing near fire, warming but dangerous. Time passed. Spring tried to arrive, but hesitated. Emma began to live more openly again. She met friends. She laughed. She told herself she was moving on. Daniel did the same. He accepted invitations. He smiled more. From the outside, both looked fine. Inside, both carried the same question. What if the mistake was not feeling too much, but choosing too little? Months later, a conference brought them to the same city. Vancouver welcomed them with gray skies and calm water. Neither of them knew the other would be there until the last moment. When Emma saw Daniel across the lobby, time slowed, then rushed. Forward all at once. They stood still, surprised but calm. No rush, no shock, just recognition. "Hi," Daniel said. "Hi," Emma replied. They shook hands like professionals, but their eyes told a deeper story. They had changed. Not in appearance, but in weight. Life had added layers. They attended sessions separately, both distracted. The words on stage mattered less than the space between them. That evening, they walked along the harbor, not planned, not forced, just to people choosing honesty for a moment. They talked about work first, then about life, then about the quiet months between messages. There was no anger, no blame, only understanding. "I used to think the mistake was crossing the line," Daniel said as they watched the water move, slowly. "Now I think the mistake was pretending the line didn't affect us." Emma nodded. "I followed every rule, and still I lost something." They stood in silence. The city lights reflected on the water, broken and beautiful. Did not touch. They did not promise anything. They did not need to. The truth had already been spoken. The next morning, they parted with warm smiles. No regret, no fear. Just acceptance. Life moved forward again. Emma returned to Seattle lighter than before. Daniel stayed in Toronto with clearer thoughts. They did not continue their messages. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood. Some connections are not meant to last forever. Some exist to teach. Emma began to make braver choices. She spoke more honestly. She trusted her instincts. She learned that rules guide behavior, but values guide the heart. Daniel did the same. He allowed himself to feel fully, even when outcomes were uncertain. He learned that being careful did not mean being silent. They never became a story society would talk about. No scandal. No headlines. just two lives quietly changed by something that never fully happened. And yet it mattered. Because some mistakes are not loud. They are not reckless. They do not break laws or rules. They live in silence. They grow in hesitation. They shape people from the inside. And somewhere, every day, someone makes that same prohibited mistake. Not by doing too much, but by holding back what was true,